Hey, everybody, and welcome to the ACE Football Academy. Coach Hamilton virtually alongside Coach Dunham on our Friday Footy Talk. Coach, we've done a lot of episodes together, and I think this might be the first one that we have done when you and I were not in the same place. We've had guests on virtually and things like that, but I think this is the first one we've done with you and I not in the same spot.
Yeah, it's one of those odd weeks. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So we just kind of the U.S. men's team just finished up their most recent round of friendlies of international competition. Of course, everyone knows that the World Cup is coming soon next summer to the United States. So that lead up and build up looks a little different for them because they're not having to go through the qualifying, right? They've already qualified, so they're not having to do that. Um, the I think the pressure for the United States is extremely high for them to do well in this World Cup. I think doing well looks different for everybody. I think that's what makes this a unique situation. But for me, on my side of things, yes, I understand that pressure is there, coach, but my expectations for this team are pretty low.
It's a wild thing. We were riding so high for a while, and it seems like when Pochettino came in, everything just got flipped upside down. And I kind of look back to when Jurgen Klinsmann came in, and I felt like it's kind of that situation. However, Pochettino's not having the success early on that Klinsmann did. And I think, just like you said, not only the pressure, but the expectations are just kind of going downhill a little bit.
And to
But
be
also,
fair, no, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
And to be fair, that's not all on Poch, right? That's not all his
Yeah.
fault. He's playing the hand that he was dealt with. But go ahead and finish up your thought as well.
Well, I think you're on the same page here. We've mentioned this numerous times. You can bring in any world class coach that you want. If you don't have the talent, it doesn't matter what you put on the field. You're going to continue to struggle in CONCACAF, which we shouldn't be. Um, and I see what Pochettino is doing. I feel like every friendly or qualifier that he's been a part of, he's had a new lineup almost every single game. And in my reasoning, I think maybe you're in the same boat. He's testing the waters. And the fact that we've already qualified, I think allows him that flexibility to not be pressured to win the qualifiers. He just needs to find the right 11 to go into the World Cup.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I guess my next question to that, sorry, I'm pulling up their schedule right now.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
looks like they play a couple matches in October, a couple matches in November, and that's all I see. So
Well, I just heard, I think they're working on games for the spring, and I
okay,
heard like Germany.
wow.
I think I heard Netherlands. I think they're trying to get higher tier teams for the World Cup. And I think that tells me that Pochettino is saying, hey, come January, February, my 11 is going to be more clear.
Well, and you hope that's the case, right? But and so that was my thing. When do you stop the experimentation? You mentioned he's bringing in new lineups. He's bringing in different nines and different goalkeepers and things like that. And when does that experimentation end? And when do we really start to see, okay, these are the 11 that we're going to see next summer? I mean, it's going to have to be early spring. You don't want just to play one round with this group, right? You want to have them together. You want to have them in multiple camps together and go from there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the rest of this year, if we have more games in October and anything in 2025, I don't have a problem with him continuing his, I guess, his testing of the pool, maintaining that flexibility. He needs to get a good film session of all these different players. He's got a lot of players that have talent, but we haven't shown them at higher levels. The Diego Luna's come through. The Giaranas are kind of falling through the cracks. So you got to find out, and we've said this before, who's playing up at their level and who's playing down to their level. And he's got to find not only the right players, but the right players who are playing the best at the right moment.
And we kind of already hit on some of these first things that we wanted to talk about. The automatic qualification means we're not going to be playing that CONCACAF qualifiers. It does look like in October we're playing Ecuador and Australia. In November we're playing Paraguay and Uruguay. So some decent sides there, but my things with these friendlies is you're not going to get those high stakes, high pressure types of matches because you are removing those qualifiers. You're not going to see what Dest or any of those guys are going to do under some higher pressure until maybe it's too late, or until maybe it is that moment, and then we find out they're not the right guy. So for me, that's the biggest issue. I mean, look, we're glad that we automatically qualified because you and I always sweat whether or not we're gonna qualify, even though
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't. But we're in. Um, Coach, let's look at kind of just let's look at the player. Let's look at the roster. I think that there two biggest question marks right now are striker, who's going to be the nine. Although it looks like oh, his name has left me. Balogun is going to become that
Yeah.
nine. Looks like he's going to become that nine. But then I think we're pretty unsettled in the center back position as well.
Yeah. And I feel like Tim Ream is getting a lot of starts, which I, I don't want to say I'm shocked, but I feel like there's other players who not necessarily are playing at a higher level, but maybe at an even level that are younger. And why not give them the opportunity? I think we all agree having that veteran presence is massively important. And maybe
Yeah.
Tim Ream brings that veteran status. He brings that leadership in the locker room that they need. And that may be why Pochettino likes him out there. Um, but I agree. Getting that back line is going to be a major issue. You got Serginho Dest that really just came back from a host of injuries. Your right back, or is it your left back? I think it's your left back. I think Dest plays right back. Your left back is still a little bit questionable, and he's kind of held that revolving door of different center backs teaming up with Tim Ream. So if there's one thing that, and again, I'm a defensive coach. I like having my back line squared away. I like having my holding mid squared away as soon as possible. I would like to have that backline squared away for the October qualifiers so they can start building that chemistry because we can't be figuring out what our offense is going to be when we're getting scored on the first 15 minutes of every single game.
Yeah, we've also seen him run some of that Mark McKenzie in that back. The thing is, it's kind of what you and I don't love is that he's playing a back three. So when we talk about center backs,
Oh
it's going to
yeah.
be one of them, right? So for me, I'm not so concerned with the back line. My concern comes much more with this current roster. Comes much more on the offensive side of the ball. You got Balogun who looked great. What I like about him is he's one of the say few, but he might even be the only striker on this team that can create for themselves. Where everybody else seems to have to kind of be set up. You have Damian Downs, Josh Sargent, among others. He's been playing that IG Mang. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but he's been playing the IG Mang kid quite a bit. But the offensive firepower on this team, even when Pulisic is around, isn't great. And that is my biggest concern with this team.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like it's a revolving record here where every single World Cup qualifying, we're like, who's going to be scoring our goals? Back in the
Yeah.
days when we had Altidore and Dempsey and Landon Donovan, we felt like, oh, right, we've got guys that can put balls in the back of the net. But that was 15 years ago, coach. I don't know that we have that legit. I mean, you can put Pulisic in there, but he really hasn't been himself on the national level. I think he's still playing well. I think he's still playing one of the best players on that roster.
Right.
But it can't just be on Pulisic's back. He's not a Messi. He's not a guy
Yeah.
that can carry the team on his back and put balls in the back of the net because teams are going to shut Pulisic down. He's not a big guy. He's not strong enough to hold that kind of stuff. We need where's Ricardo Pepi been?
Yeah.
I know we've seen Balogun in there. Agamang has been getting stuff in there. I think he's been giving that Haji Wright some opportunities off and on, but no one's really standing out as like a clear leader. I know we've mentioned Balogun here, and out of those guys, I'm pretty sure Balogun probably is the leader to take that spot.
Agreed.
But who's going to be the other winger? I feel like Tim Weah's got the opportunity to be that, but I don't, and I think we're on the same page. I don't feel like we have that threat where people are concerned about our attacking opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. And so, you talk about those wings, or even, the wing backs is ultimately what the U.S. Plays. Looks like Alex Freeman and Max Arfston, their stock really rose over these last two games. Looks like Pochettino is very high on them. He likes them in those positions. But again, it's players that are a little more untested, unproven, and and that goes back to the importance of playing these friendlies against the Germanys, against the Englands, against the Spains, because that's who you're going to be going against next summer.
Yeah, definitely, coach. And just like you said, we need to play the high level teams. We can't, I mean, I know you just said we got Ecuador and Australia, and while they're going to give us a match, it's not going to be at a World Cup level. And that's the issue I think we're both trying to get at here.
Coach, I'm continuing with our player discussion real quick, and then we'll move on. But one of the big things for this U.S. squad is going to be is Pulisic, Adams, Weah. Hang on, you're going to hear a dog for a second. Coach, I was just saying, it's going to be the health of guys like Pulisic, Adams, McKinney, who haven't always been the healthiest. It's going to be the health of those guys that are really going to matter next summer.
Well, not only that, you know, is McKinney still playing at the level that we need? There's a lot of question marks about Gio Reyna. He was just dropped from this previous international break where he's left off that roster. Adams is out there, Pulisic is out there. I think Way has been out there. I don't know that I'm as concerned about the injuries. I feel like we'll be okay. I think the question mark is, are our key players going to be playing at the highest level, ready for a World Cup match? I mean, Weah was one of those wingers that we could really depend on with his speed, his quickness with the ball, find those pressure points, down the seams. Adams being a ball winner, Pulisic just doing his world class kind of stuff. But Reyna has kind of just fallen off the planet. He was playing in Germany. He's just moved to another new team. So there's big question marks on Reyna. McKinney just joined another new team. There's question marks with him. So the question is, are these guys kind of falling down the ladder as far as where they belong on the roster?
Which I agree with, and I don't mind replacing those guys, at this point. But it's going to be the question: Are the Alex Freemans and the Max Arfstons, who I mentioned earlier, are they going to be able to handle the German attack, the Spanish attack when it comes to that? And that's a question that, unfortunately, Coach, I don't think we're going to know the answer to until we get to the World Cup and we get to see it in action.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Coach, one last thing, just for us to kind of dive into, and we both kind of already hit on it tonight, but it is the that fact of um, that fact of where we have struggled, against top competition, and
Yeah, not
and
saying it
te-
lightly.
Yeah, and can we score? I mean, one of the big. I keep going back to the offense, and I know maybe that's not fair to those some of those guys, but how many games do we get beat 1-0 or 2-0 just simply because? I mean, I go back to I think it was the Netherlands, the last World Cup, and I think they beat us 2-0, and everybody was like, "Oh, that way we held the ball, we had possession," and you want to go, "Yeah, but did you look at the game? Like, yeah, we had the
Hmm.
60% possession, but Netherlands killed us. That game was never in doubt for them. Because teams know that, yeah, they can give us possession because we don't have the firepower to create goal scoring opportunities. And when we do create them, very rarely do we connect on them.
Yeah, I think it's not just scoring goals. It's are we creating those opportunities? I mean, we've all had those games where you get 15 to 20 decent shots on goal and they're going straight to the keeper. The keeper's making great saves. You're hitting the post. It's going just wide. Those games happen. Are we getting those opportunities or are we just not even getting in the box? You know, and I think that's what you're referring to with the Netherlands game. Is we just never got the ball in the box. And their defense just shut us down. They gave us no leeway to make any good opportunities. And that's what I'm looking for. Are we moving the ball to create opportunities? Are we getting it into the seam? Are we penetrating those center backs? Are we spreading them out, switching the? I mean, what is happening to give us those opportunities to try to score? Or are we just not getting into the box?
Which leads me into one of the final things I want to talk about. If I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here, if you were coaching this team heading into next summer, what and your roster can be you can take whoever you want on the roster that is currently available. What and I think this is where I struggle a lot when I watch this team. We have no real identity. I don't know what the
Hmm.
tactical identity is during matches of, oh, I can clearly see that this is what we're trying to do offensively and this is what we're trying to do defensively. So if I gave you the keys, are you going to press aggressively? Are you going to look to play that possession as we just talked about? Are you going to lean on that counter attacking? What would you do to your point, create those opportunities for us inside the box and things like that?
Well, I kind of look at what's happening in the Premier League, and I relate to that because you and I watch them, you know, religiously, basically.
Right.
And I feel like the big teams, the Liverpools, the Manchester Cities, the Arsenals, they depend heavily on their wing play. And when they have the opportunity to get up to their wings and up high, it is gone. And so when you got somebody like Pulisic and Tim Weah, who you know can handle the ball at their feet, they can handle the ball under pressure, and they have some speed to them a little bit, that's where my identity needs to be built from. And I don't know what my defensive line is going to be. I think we'll be okay in the midfield, not great. But if I know I've got some wings who can cause some problems, that's what I'm looking for. And are they going to start the attacks? I don't want to see slow buildups with the American team. And I'm not saying hit long balls, but I want to see them making that back line uncomfortable as much as possible. 1v1s, working the give and goes, changing the point of attack to the other wing. You know, I think the wings on the American side is going to be the X factor going forward. Can we utilize them to get things going to either get shots on goal or creating that shot or creating that pass to get that good shot on goal?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then I would also say tactically wise, I love that you're mentioning the wings because I agree with you. I think that's where we have to start that build up. And I think this is what you were hitting at. But our pace of play is so slow
Yeah.
that it you know even when we do make the runs or Ballard can make he made a great run the other night to score and he scored off of it and it was great, but the ball was late. He had to wait on it. He had to he had to basically curve his run even more because our speed of play is so slow on the American side of the ball that I think that's one of the largest things that hurt us when we play the Netherlands or we play Germany is that we're just not, I'm going to use the word talented, but we're just not talented enough to play with them right now.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you're saying here. And I think I look back at their style of play and I compare it to the Italians, who have never been big on um, pressing up on the attack. They're very defensive. They've always been very defensive, holding the ball, slowing things down, and that's how I see it. But the problem with that is we're not great defensively. We're not great at maintaining that possession and just slowing the game down and then out of nowhere getting that counter on. That's just not who we are. So, and maybe that's why Pochettino's playing a 3-4-3. He's just saying, we're going to throw everything we can and we're going to press. We're going to get that ball in their attacking third. And we're going to try to make sure it stays on there as much as possible. And maybe that works for us. But I think unless we have, and if he plans on going forward with this 3-4-3, your back three, they've got to be big, they've got to be strong, they've got to be fast, and they've got to be smart. And that's a lot to ask for three guys that really, what level are they playing at in Europe? Or are they playing MLS? You know, Tim Ream's had time in Europe. Dest has time with Barcelona, but what's the other guy going to be? And that's the big question mark.
Yeah, I agree completely, Coach. Two final things, Coach, I want to get with you on this. You have highlighted some young players that maybe have potential to break into that roster, young players that may have potential to continue to move into that roster, like in Agimang. I already mentioned Alex Freeman, who's that right back. I think, like, my question for you is going to be, who are you most excited to maybe see and have the potential to develop into their role for the U.S. team going into the World Cup? For me, the answer to that question is Alex Freeman. I really like what he's doing as that right back. Um, he is very young, but I do think he'll make this team just because of all the things we've talked about, because of the uncertainty of our current backs.
Yeah, I've got two guys. Diego Luna, I think, has played well. One of the things that I like about him is he's relentless. I think that's the word I use for him. He's not one to just, you can tell he wants to get in there and get things done. Um,
Great.
but, and I don't care about his size. I feel like he's got the speed, but does he have the soccer IQ at that level to create those opportunities? And I think that's what I'm still waiting to see happen from him. He's been in the right place at the right times, but I don't think I've seen enough of creativity with the ball, um, finding ways to manipulate that defense. And I like to see a little bit more of that from Diego Luna, but I think he's a nice developing player that I'm going to keep my eye on down the road. The other guy I'm looking at, and I mentioned him already, is Ricardo Pepi. Where is Pepi? Talk about a guy who was just scoring goals left and right a couple of years ago, and now I don't know the last time he's played on the national team.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
great question.
and I don't recall if he's dealt with injuries in the past. I haven't really researched him very much, but just a guy that I felt like was just on the rise and just magically just disappeared, and that kind of concerns me a little bit.
Yeah, a couple other guys that Coach Dunham and I are both keeping our eyes on is the Paxton Aronson,
Mhm.
excuse me. He's currently with Eintracht Frankfurt, so we love it when our players are playing for those bigger clubs in the bigger soccer places. Benjamin Cremeshi, Inter Miami midfielder, and then Musa, of course, we have not mentioned, but we expect him to be a
Hmm.
part of this squad as well. Um, Coach, before I let you go tonight, real quickly, on September the 12th, which is when this episode will release, what are your expectations for knowing what you know at this point? Where are you thinking we're done in the group stage? We get to the quarterfinal. If I have made you choose now, and I'm sure we will circle back to this prediction right before the tournament, but on September the 12th, what are your thoughts? Or maybe just what are your expectations?
Yeah, I think at this point we've got the world class coach. we've got a guy that has a history of developing, preparing tactically. He knows how to get players in the right position, and I'm willing to give him leeway right now because I know he's trying to test what he has. But right now, looking at the World Cup and seeing what I've witnessed on the field, I think we'll get out of pool play. I don't know how far we're going to get. I don't know if we get beyond the first round of knockout stage. Um, but again, maybe that changes once we get into the spring and we start seeing the true starting 11, which I think that's going to be the biggest factor right now. We don't have a starting 11. And he's really changed a formation that we're not familiar with in the American side on a 3-4-3. Um, so hopefully that does change. I have faith in Pochettino. I think you need to give a guy time. I mean, he really just started and he's had injuries he's had to deal with. He's had the Gio Reyna issue. He's had Pulisic, being up and down and certain things. So I'm willing to give him a little leeway, but I don't have a huge confidence in them really going deep into the World Cup right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And something I do want to bring up because I think it's something that has hindered us in the past, especially last year's World Cup in particular. Um, we often get put in groups that I feel like um, we could win, and it feels like we always end up coming in second. And everybody has to keep in mind when you finish in that second spot, yeah, it's great. You qualify, you move on, but now you could be facing a Spain or a Germany in that first round who's won their group. And you've just really kind of put yourself in a tough situation because you draw a game you shouldn't draw or you lose a match you shouldn't lose. So I think that's important too. The I don't. I'm trying to look up when the tournament draw is going to be, but I don't see that. So as soon as we get that, we'll let everybody know. But coach, any final thoughts on the U.S. men's national team as of September 12th, looking ahead to next summer?
Yeah, I think you kind of keyed on it there a little bit. I don't want the men's team going into pool play being conservative. I say if you're going to play a 3-4-3, show me why you're playing a 3-4-3. I want to see you just being super aggressive, taking those chances. Let's get in there and force some goals instead of just sitting back and hoping something creates in the 75th minute of the game.
No, absolutely, I agree, coach. Coach, a lot of fun tonight, kind of just breaking down the men's national team where they are right now. We just watched them play two matches: a loss versus Korea, a win versus Japan. So we'll look forward to maybe recircle back to this towards the end of November after we get an opportunity to watch them play four more friendlies. Again, two in October, two in November. Coach, appreciate you jumping on with us tonight. I know a little different for you and I. Hopefully, we'll be back to normal next week, but we appreciate everybody listening in. This is the Ace Football Academy, our Friday footy talk. Coach Dunham and Coach Hamilton, go kick some ace.